Welcome back to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast. Today is an inspirational story of a girl who got cancer and started running and healed. No, it's really not that simple. Really, Lindsay Hawker, who is a wife and mother of two young sons, was diagnosed with breast cancer at age 34. She underwent 15 months of chemotherapy, had a double mastectomy, and a total of 4 surgeries in all. And she began running just 6 weeks after her mastectomy and has gone on to run thousands of miles now, successfully going from major illness to major marathon. Lindsay is now certified in plant-based nutrition from Cornell and the Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies, and RCA certified adult distance running coach. This really just shows the power of lifestyle as medicine. And as you will hear in this episode, you will understand why Lindsay started running in the first place in terms of her cancer prevention and relapse prevention, and you'll understand the power of that. And really, if you just want to hear a story that is powerful, it's inspiring, and makes you want to get up and do something good for yourself, you've got to listen to this one. Lindsay's story is incredible, and I'm so thankful that I got to meet her so that she can share her story here. I hope you enjoy.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome, Lindsay Hawker from Running Past Cancer to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Super excited to have you here today. We need to be inspired by something these days. This world is quite doom and gloom, at least sometimes when I pull up social media. But when you pop into my social media feed, it is amazing and bright and typically positivity. And I think that your story is going to be super powerful for our listeners today. So first off, before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do currently?
Yes. So my name is Lindsay Hawker, and first and foremost, I am a mother and a wife. I have 2 sons who are 11 and 7, and they are my world. And I also am certified in plant-based nutrition, and I'm a certified RRCA adult run coach. So I help women get back to movement after cancer, or even if you've never had cancer, start run walking and get moving.
Yeah, so important. And I think as your story unfolds today and we hear that, we're going to understand why maybe you do what you do with running, and how important activity is for cancer patients or prevention, and even after, in remission patients. So, all right, let's just go straight into your story. Like, take us back to when everything in your life shifted.
Yes. So let me just paint a little picture. I was not like I am today. I was not a runner. I kind of treated, and I didn't really eat too well. I kind of treated this life like it was a dress rehearsal. And we all know it's not a dress rehearsal. I ate the standard American diet. Pretty much. I was a fast food queen. I wanted to eat healthier. I wanted to move my body. I just really was just ignorant to the fact of how to even get started. So I was 34 years old when I found a lump in my breast. My youngest son was 9 months old, and my oldest was 4. So to say that time was stressful would be an understatement. Those that are mothers can know that, having young kids is already stressful enough. And I found a lump. I went to the doctor, and what happened just unfolded was so quickly. I was by myself, and I was sent right off to get a mammogram and an ultrasound. They were able to fit me in the same day. And they came in and brought me a box of tissues. And the doctor said, there's an 80% chance it's cancer. And I was absolutely floored. I was in shock. So I went home, obviously told my family, and, my family being positive, they're like, you're going to be the 20% that it's not cancer. And I just thought, I said to them, if there was a slot machine in the corner that had an 80% chance of winning, you would play that. Those are pretty good odds. Like, I had already started to accept the fact that I probably had cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave me a call in a few days and they said, yes, it was in fact cancer. And in the beginning, before you know the prognosis, before you know if it's spread or what have you, that was the darkest time in my life. I thought I knew what anxiety was until that time. I had no idea. I just remember looking at my 9-month-old and even my 4-year-old thinking, if I don't survive this, they're not going to remember their mother. They're not going to have those memories. So I would once I got my cancer was estrogen positive, and also it contained a protein called HER2 positive, and that means that it's more aggressive than other types of breast cancer. So that to me was very scary. So I had to undergo a lot of treatment, 15 months of chemotherapy, 4 surgeries in total. And I just thought, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure I beat this. And not only beat this, I wanted to thrive. I wanted to be there for my children. So I just started trying to take my health back step by step. And the first thing I started doing was running. I had my big double mastectomy surgery. It was underneath, I was under for almost 8 hours. It was a long surgery. And afterwards, the nurse got me up and said, okay, we're going to walk. Walking's healing. We're going to get you up and get you moving, get your blood pumping. And a little light bulb went off in my head. And I thought, if walking is good, running's got to be even better. Like, yeah. I think I'm going to start running once I'm cleared to exercise. And so I had always admired runners. I'd see people on the street. I'm like, good for them. Just like I admired people that were vegan and plant-based. I always had so many questions for these people, like, wow, that's amazing what you're doing, So I started slowly with the movement piece first. And so I started walking 6 weeks after my double mastectomy. It was very hard. Running is hard, period. And then when you're running with chemotherapy in your body, it's 10 times full. It's so much harder. So my goal was initially just to run down to the mailbox. I had a mailbox that was like down the street from my house. And at the time that was a long ways for me because I was literally going from laying in the bed. I was so sick with chemotherapy. It was a sickness like I had never endured ever. Puts, pregnancy, fatigue, and sickness to shame. Wow. It's just horrible. So I just kept at it, and it made me feel alive at a time when I needed it most. It opened my eyes to how I could feel. I could feel so great. So I just kept at it, and I'd have to start over. A lot of times I was still getting procedures and chemotherapy and infusions, and I would have to keep starting over. And I didn't care this time because I was going to take my health back and I was going to get healthier. And so I just kept building and building. And 1 year after, well, actually it was 2 months after my double mastectomy, I ran my first 5K. And that was great. I mean, that was a long ways for me, 3.1 miles, from laying in the bed. And then a year after my last chemotherapy, I ran my first half marathon. And so I haven't stopped since. I mean, I've stopped for like I said, little areas here and there for procedures and whatnot, but I hope to be running for the rest of my life.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
First off, let's just go back. How quickly did you say, like, after your diagnosis that you went in for surgery and like started treatments? Because I feel like with a lot of people, there's like lag time, there's thought, like, what am I going to do for my treatment? Like, how did you process all of that? How did you decide? Was it just like, or was the decision made for you? Like, this is what you need to do in order to, heal. How did that all unfold?
Yes, that's a great question. So my first doctor, he was amazing. He didn't sugarcoat anything, which I like. I like someone to just kind of lay all the cards out on the table. And so when I was diagnosed, I was so upset. I was crying in his office, and he's like, look, I get it. You're upset. You have every right to be, but you need to change every aspect of your life. Every aspect of your life you need to change. It's not working, whatever you're doing. And that really woke me up. And I'm like, you know what? He's right. He's right. I was upset. I was allowed to be upset. I was not going to unpack and live there. I was going to get to work and change everything. So since I was HER2 positive and it was more aggressive, it was suggested that I do chemotherapy first.
Okay.
And he provided all these studies for me. So I like that. I'm very research based. So I would read all the studies and say, okay, I'm going to do chemotherapy first because it was so aggressive. I needed to do that before surgery. So I did 6 months of hardcore chemotherapy.
Mhm.
One of the chemo is called the Red Devil. It literally looks like red Kool-Aid. They come in a hazmat suit to put it on you. So, and can you imagine they're putting that in your body? So,
Oh my God.
and it also kills the good cells as well. I mean, I was completely depleted. So I did 6 months of hardcore chemotherapy, and then I had my double mastectomy and my big surgery. So, and then it went from there. I had other surgeries that were smaller. And then I did 9 more months of a lesser chemotherapy. It's more of an immunotherapy. And all the studies show that, the recurrence is very low if you do these drugs. But, at that time, when I started that hardcore chemotherapy, I was really trying to fuel my body with mostly plants. I was going from, like I said, eating the standard American diet to now trying to incorporate more fiber, more plants, more living foods to help me kind of combat that poison that I was putting in my body.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you felt depleted. Let's kind of pick this picture. Like you felt horrible. I can't even imagine, like you said, running is hard. Moving your body is hard. Like when you're feeling pain, when you're feeling defeated and depleted, it's just so mentally hard to get yourself up and go. And, I'm sure that once you're diagnosed with a cancer, like you have a new fire in your belly to just do whatever you can to make sure it doesn't come back, right? I'm sure that there's that. But also, Lindsay, did you have to lean in on faith, or did you just have willpower to get up and go? Like what was that for you? What did that look like?
Yeah, let me paint you a picture. When I say depleted, first of all, I looked in the mirror and I did not recognize the person staring back at me. I was completely bald, no hair, no eyelashes, no eyebrows. I had gained 25 pounds because of the medication. You're on steroids and other things. And I requested and insisted to get off of some of that because I could tell it was, messing with my chemistry, and I really wanted to get healthy. So 25-pound weight gain, no hair. You're looking at yourself in the mirror, and I did not recognize myself either. I was sick. There was not a day that went by that I was not throwing up or having diarrhea. It wrecks your gut health. I mean, chemo just wrecks your gut health. So I was very, very sick, and I was in my dark bedroom a lot of the time, and I would scroll on social media and I would see people running, playing sports, and I was like, I wish I could do those things, right? I wish I could get up and go. And so I made a promise to myself, once I'm physically able to, I'm going to move my body, whatever that looks like for me. I'm going to stay consistent and move my body. And so that's the willpower. That's what I had. And I would hate and that it took me getting sick until I actually really took a long, hard look in the mirror at my health. And I don't wish that for other people. So I hope that I can show that, it's never too late. You can turn it around at any time and just start on a health journey. Yeah.
Wow. That is usually you hear people saying like, well, I prayed, or like something like, I don't know, outside of them, but you just said, look, like, this is it. And you made the decision to do it. And that kind of is like, that's how my story went too. Like I was so sick and tired of feeling sick and tired and I was depressed. Like I was so tired of eating too much processed food and sitting on the couch every night and watching Jeopardy. Like I knew that there was so much more to my life or looking toward the weekends just so that I could drink copious amounts of alcohol and cook, lots of chicken and lots of all the things that like really were making me feel horrible. And it was truly just that decision, you have to sometimes just hit that point that you decide, you make that decision, and it's just one step at a time, one day at a time after that your whole entire life can change. And I just love that you're just like, look, no, I saw these things. I was inspired and I said, I am doing this. I'm taking control of my health. Before we get too far into this episode, I want to just remind you of the fact that on this podcast, you hear a lot about reducing our toxins in terms of our food and how to prevent cancer through nutrition and all of the things that really can lead to chronic illness. But what you might not be thinking a lot about is what you put on your skin on a daily basis. And that is why 7 years ago, I linked arms with a B corporation called Beauty Counter, which is the pioneer in clean beauty. And we not only create high performing, significantly safer products, but also advocate on Capitol Hill, nationwide, and even in Parliament in Canada to help get more health protective laws passed so that one day all products on the shelf will be safe. And what you may not know is that it's been over 80 years since a federal law has been passed to protect consumers, both in America and in Canada. They have a lot higher standards in Canada, but it's been over 80 years in America since we have actually put really stringent health protective laws on our personal care products. That includes body products, that includes makeup, your hair stuff, all of the things that we're exposed to on a daily basis that we could easily swap out for safer. And right now, only 10% of American products have been tested for human health safety. And what we do know is that there are ingredients that are allowed in our personal care products right now that are linked to cancer, allergies, endocrine disruption, obesity, and more. That is not okay. So I invite you to make a safer swap today. I really encourage you to look at the labels that you have of your current products at home. Go to the EWG app, the Environmental Working Group, and get a rating on what's going on in your personal care. You want to stay below a 3 if you can at all. One of the biggest things that you can avoid is fragrance. That is a code word for over 3,500 chemicals that could be hiding in your personal care that are known to cause human health issues. So again, I invite you, make the switch, go to mybetterbeauty.com and shop for your new lipstick, shop for a clean foundation, shop for a nice and high-performing body lotion that isn't going to cause you human health issues down the road. When it comes to environmental toxins, these things can accumulate in our fat tissues and within our cells, and we want to just reduce our exposure whenever we can. Switching to safer beauty is one of the easiest things that you can do. So again, go to mybetterbeauty.com or click below in the show notes to open up your whole new world of low tox living and remove the overwhelm and make sure that you find brands that you can trust, just like Beauty Counter. If you need any help, I'm here as always to help you along your holistic living journey. All right, back to the show. You decide, you make that decision, and it's just one step at a time, one day at a time after that your whole entire life can change. And I just love that you're just like, look, no, I saw these things. I was inspired and I said, I am doing this. I'm taking control of my health. So inspiring. So how in the world did you go from feeling horrible to running? You said that you didn't run before. You became...
No, I would try to run. I would go out, and I think I do what a lot of people do is just go out and run as fast and as far as you can. And I would be completely gassed and sore for the next week and think, oh, this is too hard. I can't do this. And I would give up. So I would try to do things. I would try to work out, but it never stuck. So, but this time I was like, I've read the studies. I know that movement is great for cancer, keeping cancer recurrence at bay. And even if you've never been diagnosed, it's great you have to move your body, right? Per week, so many minutes. So I went out and I ran. It was so hard. That first 5K that I actually won an entry into a 5K that was outside of my neighborhood. I was too afraid to sign up. I'm like, I'm not a runner. I'm a cancer patient, right? You know, I had a bald head and I won an entry in it. And I think it was fate because once I did that one race, I was like, I need more of this. The community, the sense of just, belonging and, acceptance. I loved that feeling and I wanted more of that. It was so hard. That first 5K, those 3.1 miles, it could have just been a marathon. That's how far it felt for me. It was so far, but I felt so accomplished, and I knew I could do it. It was like another brick I was just building, and I was like, okay, I can do this. And I just kept at it.
Wow. So good. Yeah. I don't think, maybe I have ran a 10K. That's as far as I've ever gone. And, I would be super happy if I could get back into like a 5K rhythm. That was like 10 years ago that I was doing 5Ks. I was studying exercise science. And you know what? I don't ever remember learning how important movement is, like, for cancer patients after they're in remission. So can you just explain that? I mean, you just touched a little bit on that, like, so, but for people who are listening, how important is this after, and even just in the prevention, like, why is movement so important? What does it do?
Well, I mean, it gets your blood pumping, right? It gets, your lymphatic system moving. We all need that. You just need 5 days a week for 30 minutes. And I know that might sound very daunting to some people, but go out and power walk for 30 minutes. Walk, do what you can. Don't let what you can't do impact what you can do, right? Anybody can do something. You can hop on a bike for 30 minutes. Find what lights you up. It doesn't have to be running. It could be swimming. It could be cycling. It could be, riding the bike with your kids, however you can fit it in. 5 days a week, 30 minutes is going to bring your risk down, as well as BMI. BMI is a huge factor in breast cancer diagnosis. We have to keep our BMI in check. I mean, it all goes hand in hand, right? With your hormones and everything, growth factor, your metabolic symptoms, like, you have to keep everything kind of in check. And once you get it, it's easy to keep it going once you're already there. It's hard to get it, but once you get it, you can keep it moving. So the hardest part is just starting. Hardest part is just beginning. Yeah. And then once you create a habit out of it, you're coasting, right?
Yeah. So habits, growth factor, BMI. Let's talk food. You, again, were kind of put into this situation because of your situation. You changed your lifestyle because of your situation. But for so many people, even people that don't have cancer that they know of, why is reducing growth factor so important? We know BMI, which is your body mass index, which kind of is like your ratio to your height and your weight. Like, if we have that down, that will reduce our risk of getting hormone related cancers, prostate, breast. And then you're talking about, growth factor, BMI, and what was the other thing I just lost my train of thought?
Metabolic syndrome. You need, there's a whole hierarchy of things.
I was talking about habits. Yeah. And habits. And so you change your food habits. Like, what did you read that showed you eating plants? Because also, guys, we're painting this picture. When we're talking about BMI, we know that people who eat predominantly plants or all plants have a lower body weight. Yeah. Right. So I'm sure you read all of, like, how this all connects. Like, where did you find these resources?
Well, I love nutritionfacts.org. I think it's a great resource, right? If you have cancer, even if you don't, no matter what you have going on, you can literally go and search the caption. He shows you non-biased studies, which I love, but it took me a long time to get to the diet. That was probably the last thing. I get it when people are like, it's hard. I get it. It's been ingrained in us that we need meat or protein, or, protein is from meat, and that's not true. It's been ingrained in us that we need to eat a certain way, and it's just not true. So I had tried everything, actually. I had tried keto, Whole30. I think I did like a Whole90, actually. I did like 90 days of I did everything.
And this was after your cancer?
This was after my cancer. So I was eating, I was eating a lot of plants, but I was still meat heavy. I did cut out dairy right away because all the studies show a direct correlation between dairy and breast cancer. I mean, when people are like, what should I cut out first? Dairy is the number one thing you should cut out first.
Yeah.
Horrible. So I did cut out dairy, but then it took me a while to cut out the meat completely. And what happened was, it's funny because, well, not funny, it was actually really painful. I actually developed diverticulitis after my cancer diagnosis. And thank God my gastro was vegan. And I went and talked to her, and she was like, give it 30 days and just give it 30 days and let's see what happens. And I gave it 30 days and I was like, I feel amazing. I don't think people realize how good we can feel.
Yeah. No.
Right? How they don't realize it. And I was eating, I had cleaned up my diet some, but I was still eating a lot of meat, and it just felt so good to get rid of that. And I have not looked back since, and I'll be 3 years now with, being completely vegan, and I just feel amazing. I'll never go back. There's no reason to.
And now you're helping to inspire people to eat this way as well.
Yes,
Tell us
exactly.
a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I just shared, my complete journey on my Instagram page. And, once I got into the plant-based world, I love creating recipes, and I love creating, different things to share with people. I love having people over or family and serving them something, and at the end going, that was completely vegan and you enjoyed it. I think a lot of people have this preconceived notion that, eating that way, eating vegan or eating, whole food plant-based is boring or it lacks flavor. And that's just not true. So I just started organically sharing it. And then I decided to get certified through Cornell with their plant-based nutrition course. And I loved it. So I've just, shown people, and a lot of women that follow me are breast cancer survivors. And so, I've inspired them, hey, you make it look easy. You make this look like I can try this. I'm going to start doing that. And I do. And I help a few women too with e-coaching online. And it's just so fulfilling. And I never thought, to be honest, I would be here. I went from Chick-fil-A loving non-movement person to now to where I am. And I'm loving it and embracing it.
Yeah. And so before you were diagnosed, did you have like a full-time job? What did your life look like then? Like, were you working? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So, and then you didn't go back.
No, I'm still a little bit. So I was a corporate paralegal. And so I still am. And, but the goal is to completely get rid of that and replace it with my new,
I love talking about entrepreneurship here on the Urban Pharmacy podcast, even though my brand is whole food, plant-based eating, more natural living, low tox. It's also being financially fit. Part of living a holistic life is finding flow of money in some way that you can, because, I think especially for women, like, I don't know, there's a stigma on making money, not for all, but for some. And, there's a lot of power in making money, regardless of if you need it to pay your bills, or if you want to go out and fund, a nonprofit, or if you want to, donate your money, like whatever it is, like there is power in money. There's power in money because you can go and support local farmers markets. There's power in money because you can go and buy the organic foods that you want to nourish your body with, right? Like there's power there. And entrepreneurship, I think, is very empowering. And I think it's a beautiful, it's an amazing, blessing now that you have been able to, out of this entire story, out of this, what people could call a catastrophic event in your life, now you're able to serve others and help them along their way, and also kind of fall into this place where you have hopefully more flexibility in your life and you feel more fulfilled. That's when we even look at studies, right, Linz? Like we see studies showing like people that have a purpose they live longer, they live a more happy life. And not to say that like the job that you had before, I have no idea, like if you love it or what you currently do, but like when we can really drop into our purpose and find a financial flow through that, it's so incredible. Isn't it so amazing?
No, I completely agree. What worked for me before cancer no longer worked for me after. It was kind of like I woke up to every aspect of my life, and I completely agree with you. It's all about paying it forward. And community too, like you're saying, longevity, community, having like you've built this great community with your podcast and your, your business. And that too is great for longevity. Studies show too, people need to feel a sense of community and belonging and connection. And I think that is just, it's awesome.
And you have been able to pull in so many people through your social media. Like it's incredible. And just being so vulnerable and like transparent, I think is so key. And it's so inspiring to watch. Like now you're able to create these ebooks and to help people one-on-one. So speaking of that, can you tell us a little bit more about like what you have in terms of recipes and offerings?
Yes. So I have a couple ebooks coming up. I have a smoothie recipe book. I am the smoothie queen. I love to start my day with a large smoothie.
Where do you live? Do you live in a warm place?
I do. I live in Florida.
I had a smoothie. I'm in Indiana. I had a smoothie yesterday. Now, albeit it was 7 frozen bananas. So that's kind of extreme. It was like nice cream, but like I had a hat, I had a scarf, and I had a coat on for like a few hours afterward. Anyways, okay.
No, I get that way too. Yeah, I love smoothies and I love nice cream too. I have a nice cream recipe on my website. I love nice cream. I love smoothies. I think it's great too if you're transitioning, because I can listen, my smoothies, they rival some milkshakes, right? And if you're transitioning and you want that, creamy flavor, like you can get that from a smoothie. So I have a smoothie recipe pack, and then I have some other just, dinners, salad dressings. Most salad dressings, as you know, in the grocery store are just complete crap. Yeah. And I always make my own, and I love, so I have that together. I love sharing that too. I share a lot of them on my stories, and just a lot of recipes, a lot of transition recipes. So some will be people are just transitioning and they want that, the fake meats or what have you. And then I have a lot of just whole food, plant-based recipes that would be great after you transition.
I love that. Do you have any smoothie secrets? Like, are you using nut milks or oat milks, or are you just using water? Like, or do you like organic soy? Like, what is your
all favorite? All of the above. I like to switch it up. I like to do different nut milks, cleaner nut milks. There's some nut milks out there that are just not great. I like to do coconut water sometimes. I do live in Florida, and I run outside and I'm dehydrated. So it depends on where I'm at and what I'm doing and what I'm training for. But yeah, all of the above. I love organic soy. That's another great thing for cancer prevention and recurrence. A lot of people, I was told multiple times, avoid soy at all costs. Yep. And then once I, went through my certification, and even, nutritionfacts.org shares a lot. No, 1 to 2 servings a day actually helps prevent breast cancer. So there's a lot of misinformation floating out there, as you know. Yeah.
Yeah, soy is powerful. And, I don't know. I have thyroid issues. I don't know. I'm like back and forth with the soy. Like, we have it in our house. We have organic soy milk. It's just water and soybeans. You got to be careful, because, if you try to like a soy product and you're like, I just didn't feel good after it. Well, if it was like a processed soy, chicken tender, it probably isn't because of the soy. It's probably because of like the other gross things that are added in there. But, for some people, it doesn't agree with their body, just like beans or grains or whatever. Like, you have to listen to your body, of course, but soy can be incredibly powerful. So if you can get it into your diet, maybe through tofu or through soy milk, or maybe you really like the whole beans or tempeh, I would definitely suggest doing that, because it's eaten by some of the longest living people on earth. Plus, we found all these cancer preventative benefits. And for people who have had cancer, it can be cancer protective. So just so many good things. Okay. Linz, have you gone down the rabbit hole of other ways of your life? You're doing activity, you're doing diet. Have you started reducing toxins? Have you looked into that?
I have. So that was another thing that, I really tried to reduce. And to be honest with you, I'm still kind of getting into it. So first, when I went vegan, there's layers to being vegan, there really is. Yeah. And so, I didn't know that when I first, people are asking me, are you eating, honey? Are you doing this? What about, cruelty free? And I'm like, no, I didn't know. So I still feel like I'm peeling back the layers. So I feel like that's where you can educate me a lot too on the toxins, but yeah, I have reduced. I wouldn't say I've had completely eliminated, but I'm working to get there. I really am.
Yeah. And to me, like, I mean, we could go talk about like whatever, like vegan versus, I really like to use like the term plant-based, and honey, you know, it is pure sugar. Yes, there are actually like enzymes and antiviral and antibacterial properties to it. I have gone back and forth after over a decade of being plant-based, like if honey is good or bad or whatever, but that's not something that we actually use it in our elderberry syrup. So that's, there are layers, like you said. But I think that just more natural living is more important really than a label. And what we just to educate you on my own podcast, when it comes to like cancer and understanding the chemicals that are in our environment, guys, like for everybody that's listening, it's so important because we could be eating as clean as possible. We can be moving our bodies. We could be detoxing and sweating and doing all of these things that we know can help with cancer. But if we are continuously drinking water that is contaminated with potential antibiotics, other, ingredients in there could be really potentially harmful, but also what we're putting on our skin, like our lotions, and our cosmetics and what we're using in our house, like our cleaners. We really need to look at these ingredients because there are absolutely hormone shifting chemicals that are in these personal care products that can exacerbate cancer cells. And we need to know this. So it's really, really important. It's like a whole picture, a whole lifestyle. And like you said, like there's layers. So every day, I think all of us are just like waking up a little bit more to this. And it's really, really, it's really important. And I am just so thankful that you have shared your story. And this is going to wrap up the conversation because what I just kind of said was the other pillar. It's like another aspect of living holistically, diet, movement, environmental toxins, community, all the things we've talked about. But I love to hear, Linz, everybody's, what is your definition? What does holistic living mean to you?
Holistic living means to me just getting back to how like my grandmother ate. Like, she was very clean and simple, keeping things simple, and just, it's not about perfection, really. It's about progress. Like if you're 80% there, I get messages all the time, 80% plant-based. I'm like, that's great. That is so good. That's great. We don't have to be perfect. We can try to get there, but I feel like it's always, health and holistic living. It's the target's always moving for me for the health. Like I'm always evolving to get there. So, that's what I think. I think that, progress over perfection. We don't have to be 100% all the time, but we can strive to get there.
Yeah. And getting back to how our grandmas lived, I love that one. That's so true to me. Like that, you're right. Like, my grandma, she hears that I can, and she's like, you're canning food. I'm like, yes. And I will never stop because that I feel is like, it's like existence, like we have to slow down, start growing our own food again, just get reacquainted with, what really like just slow living is, and reducing our stress, which is another part of this whole picture.
Yes, exactly.
Gosh.
But my grandmother too, veggies, she gardens, she eats a lot of plants, and just like you said, reducing stress, getting back to nature and just grounding ourselves.
Love it. I love it. Okay. Well, I'm very inspired. I'm totally going to commit to a 5K. I'm going to have my son do it with me because he saw a dude running on the street a few days ago. He's 5.5. And he's like, what is he doing? I'm like, he's running. He's training for a race, or, for his sports. Like Cohen is in tennis, but he needs, I think he could be a good runner because he literally could just run all day. I'm like, why don't we just do this with purpose? Why don't we go outside and go somewhere? Why don't we run somewhere? So thank you for your inspiration on that. I'm going to get into it, and I'm going to ask you to hold me accountable. I'm going to DM you and be like, Linz, tell me that I can do this. Cause
I'll send you a plan. Let me know. I'll send you a plan.
I love it. I love it. Everybody needs to go follow Lindsay on Instagram, Running Past Cancer, and visit her website. And we will have all of her links down in the show notes so that you can stay connected with her. And Lindsay, thank you so, so much again for your time and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.